Shalom. First and foremost, I'd like to give all praise to Yahweh, Ba'ashem, Yahweh Shai, Ba'ashem, Rakakadash, double honors to the elders and apostles of Great Millstone, who are teaching this truth with sincerity, and a shout out to the Akims out there in the four quarters of the earth proclaiming this truth. Raka the Yahweh, Raka the Yahweh Shai, Ba'ashem, Rakakadash, Rakatum. So, this is the big news of the week. I mean, this is a lot bigger than what one realizes, is that as of Wednesday, House passes 2027 NDAA section to integrate U.S. and Israeli military. So it officially takes place in 2027. You know, the Third World War that cometh quickly. The NDAA passed largely along party lines in a 216 to 212 vote. Now, I'd read this article before, but Kim Iverson is calling it out for what it is. Betrayal. Betrayal, yeah, you're not a sovereign country. You know, at least no longer, right? The U.S. was never a sovereign state. It was always, you know, as you would say, socialist run. It's just now you got permanent integration, which means that it's official that the Israelis control Babylon. Now, we already knew that before through AIPAC and all that as she gets into, but nonetheless, so it's we're here because most people are oblivious to this. Oh, I thought we already were. No, not like this. You're not integrated like this. Yes, you call the Israeli state your ally, even though it's your enemy, because, you know, certain incidents, 9/11 in particularly, all that was done by the Israelis to blame foreign enemies. Well, now you've officially merged your government with theirs. Your goals are the same as theirs, you know, from Desert Storm all the way up to the current war on Iran. And pretty much so, it's going to lead to the Third World War that cometh quickly. It's already here, it ends with nuclear destruction.
House went and did it. They passed the NDAA, which enshrined into law the U.S. and Israeli militaries merging together. There is some confusion on the final vote. It's really kind of unclear. It looks like Thomas Massey was the only Republican to vote no on the final passage. However, other reporting published shortly afterward, including The Guardian, states that 7 Republicans voted against the final passage, and 6 Democrats actually voted for it. So it was almost a completely partisan vote where most Democrats said no to the bill, most Republicans said yes to the bill, some Democrats voted yes on it, a very small group of Republicans voted no to this. The Democrats, by the way, who voted no to this bill, it wasn't because we were going to merge our militaries together with Israel. That's not what shocked them, of course. It was everything else. It was just the, they cited everything else, but they never brought up the merging with the Israeli militaries. That's something that, believe me, if Democrats were in charge, they would have baked it in there just as easily, and they would have passed it just as fast. So this is a sad, dark day. I think that all of these people that have voted yes, most of them Republicans, have proven to be traitors to the country, and I don't use that word lightly. I do think they are traitors to the country.
Betrayal.
They knew about this provision. They put it in anyway. They voted for it, knowing that it would end U.S. sovereignty. And this is, to me, the most consequential. This is the most consequential thing that has happened in the history of our government, in my opinion. This is the single most consequential thing. This is the one thing that hands over control of our nation to a foreign terrorist country. But even if it wasn't,
hey, at least just calling them the terrorists.
Founding fathers would be rolling in their graves. It's one thing to go to civil war against each other. That was obviously quite shocking. It's another thing to create the Federal Reserve. I know the founding fathers didn't like, they weren't into that either. It's another thing for them to see, the founding fathers were to kind of rise up today and they saw, wow, you guys have all these political parties and they weren't really in favor of that. You guys have all these taxes. They certainly didn't want that. Like everything they fought against is now here in full force here in the United States at this point. But I think the single most shocking thing would be, what did you idiots do? You actually handed control over our military to a foreign government. Well, that's it. You're no longer your own country. That's the end. I mean, you could be at each other's throat, fighting in civil wars against one another. You could be arguing all day about trans rights, abortion rights, about January 6th. You idiots could be arguing about anything. Fine, okay, but at least you're still your own country. But when you actually hand over your military power to a foreign government, you are no longer sovereign. That is the end. There's no coming back from that. Total and complete idiocy.
Idiocracy,
it's beyond that. It's treason. It's full-blown treason.
Yep.
What were these idiots thinking? This is the beginning of the end. It is, again, you could argue all day, well, no, it was when we allowed, Citizens United and all the money to flood into our political system, and AIPAC was able to grasp control of all of our politicians, and the Epstein files, they were able to blackmail our politicians. That stuff's all bad enough, too. That's all really bad. And that certainly showed a level of takeover and infiltration from a foreign government, for sure. They had infiltrated us, they had blackmailed us, they had brainwashed us, they had bribed us, right? They've done all of these things, but we didn't enshrine into law them actually having power over our military. And once you lose control over the military, you've lost it. That's it. That is the one thing that keeps you sovereign. That's the one thing that keeps you sovereign. That's actually why so many people who are defenders of the Second Amendment want their guns. Because once you allow the government to take your guns, what happens? You're no longer really truly independent. Your government.
That's where your gun control laws come from, the Israeli lobby.
Against your government anyway. No, it isn't. People do it all the time. In fact, hello, founding of the nation. That's exactly what civil wars are. That's exactly what revolutions are. Yes, you can. People do it all the time. It's written in all the history books. So spare me. You absolutely can rise up against your government. But you have to have your guns. Okay, so that's on an individual level. That's on a citizen versus government level. Now, when you hand over the control over your military technology, the weaponry, the brains of your military to a foreign power, they now have you by the throat and the balls. You're locked up. I mean, you're the man behind the iron mouse at that point, and that is what they've done to us with this. Now, it hasn't passed the Senate. I get it. It's not there yet, but the Senate will pass this because we're just that dumb and bought off and bribed, and the Israelis got to this point. They infiltrated us behind enemy lines, right? They infiltrated us to the point where they could get to this point where they could actually write into legislation. It was already bad enough that they were passing laws about censoring Americans, right?
Yep. And so, like everything else, so, you know, they were sold out, right? They fought it with the gods of war. And so here it is, you know, constantly fighting Israeli battles. But, you know, like everything else, though, you know. Also, Stu Peters goes into the same subject, so we're going to take a look at that, as well as, going to look at these data centers, right? So got a couple more here. I mean, this is the highlights of the week, right? As we're heading into the weekend. And, oh yeah, don't forget, Trump is going to bomb Iran into the likes of which they've never seen before. How many times have we heard that? Well, that's what Trump says. So, this first part's about as you know, Trump is a babbling fool. Babbling fool, right? You know, the fool definitely represents Esau in a nutshell. If there's ever been a tarot card that represents Esau, it would be the fool, right? You know, because that's all that Esau thrives upon is black magic. You know, because he's got everybody else in his spell, the weak-minded. Well, that's what he did, is he made our people weak. With everything else, though, he dumbed us down. But there would be a certain remnant that would wake up. And that's just it, is we're taking the mask off. Now he can't even lie through his media, right? Because even Fox News is questioning, wait a minute, if we destroyed all the military, how are they heading back? That actually was talked about. Fox News on last Sunday is like, well, wait a minute, if we destroyed all their Navy, all their Air Force, and all their missiles, how are they hitting back as hard as they are? So the mask is off, pretty much. So they would have to say that Trump is a liar, at least. But nonetheless, though, Trump also says that you can't stop the technology. Well, the Most High says you can't either. That this MOTB has to be mandated worldwide, and that's what these data centers are all about, to track and trace your every move. And AI is a technology between the MOTB. That's how they use it, to track everyone, and that's why they're being built. They got everybody used to using AI, but they're using it basically to keep their eyes on you.
Hey everybody, Josh Searson, World Alternative Media here, and Trump says that you cannot protest, you cannot fight data centers. We know data centers have become one of the biggest topics of conversation recently as they roll out the AI surveillance grid across the board. You have flock cameras, you have basically the unrolling of these digital IDs, social credits, these food rations, all these different things that they're putting on paper now. After years of us trying to warn people, it's coming true. But, we have 62 square mile facilities with some of these data centers that are being pushed to go forward in a place like Utah. And Trump is saying some very interesting stuff regarding this topic.
You have communities that really want the data centers.
Oh, they do?
And frankly, those are the smart communities, because it means
you'll be surveilled, so that makes you smart. If you don't want to be surveilled, you're a rabble-rouser who's causing problems, possibly a terrorist, who knows, we'll find out in the future with your social credit scores.
Tremendous numbers of jobs, very little actual disruption. And the ones that don't...
By the way, we're going to be going into some of that disruption that is very much real.
Want it, the happiest people in the world are foreign countries, number one, and number two, other communities within our country, because they're begging for them to be there. And some of them are great communities, very, very forward-looking.
What a fucking liar.
We shall no longer exist, but he said in the same conversation this.
Because you have to convince your community how great these things. You can't fight it. You have to go with it.
You can't fight it. You have to go with it. Go along with it. Do as you're told. Don't ever go outside of the confines that we've built for you.
And you can have all that protection, and we're giving you automatic protection, but you're going to make a tremendous amount of money. You're going to reduce taxes.
Yeah, you feed us lies from the tablecloth.
Wants it.
So yeah, you'll just have no water, you'll have food rations and all that, but you don't need food or water. You want lower taxes, right? And when was the last time that any of that came true? The spending is through the roof right now. We're going to be going through this and much more and what it all means as we see nationwide protests against these data centers. But before we do, I urge people to check those links below and get prepared, because at the end of the day,
and they're going to protest against the MOTV as well. This is just the database that controls the
nationalbullion.com/schedule-complimentary investors package will come with that as well.
Not everybody's going to line up to get the MOTV, but a lot of people will sell out.
It's getting ugly with these data centers, and we've reported in the past extensively on what these data centers really are. I believe creating a hive mind is not just about surveillance. I think they're likely doing something else with this property. 62 square miles is no joke, and to me it sounds like they're building some kind of digital gulag system. I don't know, but they seem to be creating a brain in a way, a hive mind that will be able to control us from the AI perspective in the future and make us mere mortals, basically useless on Earth, useless eaters as they've always called us. It's all about forward thinking to complete dependence by humanity as cattle. This is going to, in my opinion, make us actual cattle on a farm. We are feeding the system. We are the meat the system is eating, and this will absolutely devastate. The water, the grid, the food. I mean, and it's exactly what I've been warning about. This is exactly what they want. They want us in a position where we are completely dependent, and they can give us rations and lab-grown meat and all that kind of crap. And the machines will be our masters, as Pink Floyd saying, "Welcome to the machine." We are in the machine now, and this isn't just about slight integration. We are fully in the machine, which Trump says you should not fight.
Because you have to convince your community how great these things. You can't fight it. You have to go with it. And you can have all that protection, and we're giving you automatic protection, but you can make a tremendous amount of money. You're going to reduce taxes, and you can have something that if you don't have it, everybody else wants it.
What value do you put on your food, your water, your shelter, my friends? You have to start asking that. And also, will that be your soul? Will that be, they'll always give you shelter, but they will give you that shelter within.
If you take the chip,
you won't own anything. You will own nothing, and you will be.
That's what it is.
Better be happy.
It's about
We're not going to give you that lab-grown meat today. Rat out your neighbor, my friends, for extra credits. Technocracy.news, which is run by our friend Patrick Wood, says U.S. data center protests go national as backlash grows. This has become a major issue. The protest is nationwide and bipartisan, as 86% of all Americans oppose data centers in their neighborhood. Though Trump will say, it's all China. It's all China. And it's all just AI.
Like that bullshit speech a couple of weeks ago.
Electricity and water consumption, as well as sound and radiation exposure. Lobbyists at the Data Center Coalition, which argues for AI data centers, are totally tone deaf to the protests, saying they are mitigating any negative impacts to households and businesses. Really? This is what Patrick Wood wrote. Patrick Wood, of course, wrote Trilaterals over Washington with Anthony C. Sutton. We have it on our bookshelf, volumes 1 and 2. I urge people to check it out. It's one of our main issues here at WAM's Technocracy and exposing it. So Trump says you can't fight it. Okay, well, people are. And they've actually been able to shut down several data centers are being built, but not all of them, and a lot of them are still going ahead, and it's destroying neighborhoods. Data centers could consume 1/5.
They just moved from one place to another. Now they're putting them in reservations, by the way.
To keep pace. Absolute insanity. Bloomberg NEF projection says artificial intelligence and rapidly expanding computing campuses could push U.S. data center demand to 194 gigawatts within a decade, outgrowing the grid's current ability to connect new facilities. By far, the grid is purposely outdated so that weather, storms, whatever it could be, can knock them down and force us into emergency rations. I've been saying this for a while. Technocracy.news also reported massive power shortfall in Northeast thanks to AI data centers. And to top it all off, you have the wildfires in Canada, you have the heat waves, you have all this kind of stuff, and strange weather modification appearing to happen as well. It's all by design. Valerie Ann Smith posted this video. Data centers in Ohio are gearing up to dump their massive wastewater straight into local lakes and rivers, and the EPA is preparing permits to greenlight it. Let's check this clip out.
On average, a single data center uses 500 million gallons of water a day for cooling, according to industry reports. Some of that wastewater could be discharged into Ohio's lakes and streams under a permitting process under review by the Ohio EPA. Environmental groups have concerns about the impact to water quality in rural communities.
It's like a small city, the discharge that will come out of these. And that will, if they don't have a sewage treatment plant, that will go into the streams or the river or another body of water.
Under the Ohio EPA's proposal, data centers that qualify for the water discharge would get a 5-year permit to release water used to cool down tech components.
This is very real. The EPA is proposing those permits to let data centers dump all that water into the lakes and streams. The Ohio EPA proposed a general permit, this one right here, to streamline the approvals for data center discharges of wastewater and stormwater. This covers a couple different kinds of water. It would allow direct discharge into rivers, streams, or Lake Erie under certain conditions.
There you go.
And by the way, I want to mention, and this is absolutely insane, but I think there is a real conspiracy here to poison the tap water, to poison.
There it is.
We already see that with hydrofluoric acid, of course, with fluoride, industrial grade fluoride, but in a much larger way, and we're going to get into some of the other impacts that affect us, including frequency waves. This seems like, again, you create this irradiating brain that controls a machine that surveils and controls you while destroying your ability to eat, your ability to drink water, poisoning the water, and absolutely forcing us into the Stone Age while the machine blasts off.
Yep, exactly. All the power being put there, but there's also more from the Stu Peters Network on the very same subject, right? There's so many things happening at the same time that it's hard to even title videos because there's so much going on, right? that sometimes the title, more often the title, but yet there's so many things.
You're very well studied
time. But
on the National Defense Authorization Act. You're very well studied on the subversion of our country.
NDAA.
And this is just furtherance of that. Yeah. So this integration that we're talking about, the Section 219, it creates a Pentagon executive agent. I believe that is the terminology that's used. Yes, executive agent. So this is a whole new bureaucratic position, an unelected bureaucratic position. And that executive agent is there to specifically accelerate the integration or the merger of Israeli origin technology into the United States.
Which the Israelis control the data centers, by the way.
In your view, does this effectively give a foreign country a permanent foothold inside the United States acquisition system that no future president could easily unwind?
Yeah, I mean, it's very clear. So it's really the parasite burrowing deeper and deeper, really is what we're looking at here with this section, 219 or 1217 in the Senate. This is the subversion and the kind of parasite burrowing deeper into the spinal cord of the United States military intelligence apparatuses and, Central Command, CENTCOM. Because we're looking at an agent that'll be working for the government of course, we'll be paying them, and they'll be working on behalf of Israel, in effect, to make sure that Israel is included in all the deals that are possible, in all the AI technology that's possible, in all the autonomous systems, like autonomous robots that will, commit crimes and murders and things like this. So they're looking at merging. Everything will be synonymous. It'll be, as they said back in June, they called this conference 50 States, One Israel. That's what this is. This is 50 States, One Israel. United States completely subsumed, effectively, by Israel.
So critics call this a stealth military tech merger that bypasses the treaty process. It bypasses, ordinary or precedented foreign aid debates. Mm-hmm. What specific language in this bill do you find the most concerning?
Well, the term that Paulina was trying to take out was just integrate, but she wasn't going to take it out of the most important parts. Integrate is the most, it's the giveaway term. It really is synonymous with merger. So anybody that says it's not a merger, okay, so it's an integration. So what's the difference? It's the total integration of these systems that is most alarming. And
does that include our service members?
Well, it includes military intelligence. So that means like strategy, tactics, everything. So they'll have our access to our AI. So you can imagine they'll be able to query anything and know anything about our military, in total. So it's a complete opening of the books of the military records of the military apparatuses, technologies, and all to Israel, giving them. And of course, they're the smaller country. They have something to gain from this. We have nothing to gain from it. We're the host. We're going to be, basically invaded further by the occupying force.
Which is a group of people, not a legitimate nation state, not a sovereign country.
I mean, it's a country whose existence has depended upon land theft and murder. So, I mean, that's effectively
just like Babylon, right?
Terrorism, three terrorist groups, which became the IDF, of course, and Hagan Aragon and the Stern gang. So all of these became the IDF. This is what their whole.
Which, by the way, ISIS really is an acronym for Israeli Secret Intelligence Services. What do you think data centers are? Secret Intelligence Services. Think about it. This whole fucking place is now Mossad, Secret Intelligence Services. They just got it finally signed. They got it approved by the House and, like Kim Iverson says, and by the Senate.
MO is there's Zionism is
all together
an imperialistic, aggressive, parasitic entity all in one. It's a parasite, and that's completely gets its entire lifeblood from other organisms, that namely being the United States.
Hasn't it always been that way, though?
Yep.
Yes, I mean, pretty much, but it's become
like Tucker Carlson said.
2.5 years, I think, under the Trump administration.
It was taken over long ago.
Opening up an exposure of the relationship like never before, and Trump, is, I think, and effectively, he's part of the mob. It's a mob. Let's make that clear. This is a mob that it's an international mob, and he's a middle, a sort of middle manager.
Like a gangster.
What are some of the things that you've heard or statements that have been made or posts that you've read on X attempting to downplay all of this, and how would you overcome that? What would be your retort for this? Like hand-waving off the NDAA.
Yeah, there are those who say there's no merger. It's typical of alliances. That is, when we see this from some of the Republicans.
Well, let's start there. Hold on a second. I don't want you to gloss over that. So there are people who say that there's a precedent for this with our allies?
With our NATO allies, for example.
Is there a precedent for this?
Absolutely not. Nothing like this at all. They're actually going to have, Israel will be sitting on our supply lines, our military supply lines. They will have direct access to it all.
So explain what that means, specifically, that they'll be sitting on our supply lines.
There it is.
It means that they're in the pipeline for all the goods that all the military equipment and intelligence and technology that we produce. They'll be in the pipeline, intercepting it, in effect. Just, basically getting direct access to it. So there's no barrier between our country and theirs, or that entity, the Zionist. There's no barrier between the Zionist entity and the United States.
That means that the Zionist entity, Greater Israel, is with Babylon the Great. It's just official now. Great Satan, little Satan are one. So it's just Great Satan, Babylon the Great. And like everything else though, it's being pounded and destroyed and defeated in every way possible. It's humiliated, you know. So like everything else though, you know, you got this false flag hoax still going out there, right? Trump swapped planes over assassination fears. U.S. President was reportedly warned that a threat from Iranian proxy forces. Got to throw that in there, right? U.S. President Trump abruptly switched planes after leaving a NATO summit in Turkey this month, following reports of a supposed Iranian plot to kill him. Which, you know, that's Trump shit. It's more than bullshit. It's Trump shit. Trump flew out of Ankara abroad the Air Force One instead of the new Qatari-donated Boeing 747-8, which lacks the same defensive capabilities. So, like everything else, so, you know, just giving you the idea that, oh no, they're trying to plot an assassination. How many fake assassination plots do you fucking need? If Trump is assassinated, to be by the Israelis to blame Iran. But I don't think they're going to assassinate him. No, he's their boy. You know, he fucks more kids than most. You know, he probably fucked more of the kids than Biden. Because it seems that the Israeli state's able to do more with Trump. It's because Trump knows how to sell it, right? Because Fox News parrots, worse than Fox News itself, well, that's who they sell it to, right? Fox News doesn't speak of the people to worship. Just like the Pied Piper led ransom through the streets. Yeah. Swaying to the symphony of destruction. Have you ever heard the song before? You know, like everything else. You know, you hear certain songs and you understand, wait a minute, this is what's happening. Why I'm writing this anonymously and what that says about free speech in Britain. Because, see, you already know about Bill C-40 or C-31. There's a C-47. Okay, there's a few of these bills that are in Canada, which is similar to the ones that are in Ukraine, right? So, you know, the famine of the word is happening, you know, very quickly. You know, but you have to have eyes to see that, okay, in between all this, you know, they're going to eventually bring it over here, right? What happens over there happens over here. Why I'm writing this anonymously and what that says about free speech in Britain. I have wanted to write for Daily Septic for a long time. It should be a straightforward ambition to fulfill. I have opinions. I support free speech and skepticism. And here is a politician built for exactly that. Instead, my first contribution arrives unsigned. I think the reason why is in itself the article. Yeah. So like everything else though, we know that the Israeli state also controls the UK, which is Mother Babylon. So, you know, you have to be anonymous, but they are going after anonymous sites such as VPNs. The far-right terror plot that didn't even exist until the UK government and media just said it did, right? You know, they made up a boogeyman. Yeah, I gotta call the boogeyman. You can't boogie with a boogeyman. You know, so what do? They create this to protect the children. I don't know. With Jeffrey Epstein and the pedophiles in power, Joe Biden and Donald Trump, I don't think that you're protecting the children. I think you're more harm to the children. Did you see the huge Muslim gathering held in Suffolk recently, which had to be called off early due to a major right terror plot being hatched against it? You may have well done, as the news was all over the media, was in reference in alarmist tones by leading politicians up to and including the Prime Minister. Both the ones we've had this week. Yeah, so, well, you have to make up a boogeyman, right? But you also see that the plot didn't even exist. They just made this shit up as they went along. Quite possibly not because of subsequent release of everyone concerned. Didn't get anything like as much space in the media and no attention at all from any politicians who had eagerly jumped into the imaginary gun to condemn it. So like everything else, you know, you can see how under the guise of a terrorist threat, right? You know, because that's why the before the NDAA, you had the Patriot Act, which led to the NDAA, which is now, you know, pretty much giving up all sovereignty to the Israeli state to surveil and control you, right? It was a police state always meant there. You just got the final nail in the coffin, waiting for Senate to pass it. So everything is the Israeli states of Babylon. Great Satan and little Satan are the same. One and the same. And King Bibi has confirmed that many times. You know, he said it to Obama. He says, well, I believe that you're the great Satan and we're the little Satan. And he laughed. And he talked about Iran, too. He just went into Iran. See, he's been wanting to go after Iran for so long, you know. And there we go. He's finally got the heart on because he knew that, okay, you know, just got to start the false flag, which was the October 7, you know, false flag of Hamas taking hostages. That thing was so fucking fake, but that's what started the war. You have to start a war in order to get people to believe it. But the only thing you've seen is the Israeli state expand. Now it has control of the U.S. military. If you didn't know that Trump was an Israeli, you're a fucking retard. Because him and King Bibi are one. I mean, I bet they've been butt buddies for a long time. They all fuck each other in the ass anyways. I mean, this is the place of Sodom and Egypt. You know? That's how fucking corrupt it is. Amos chapter 8 and verse 10. I will turn your feasts into mournings and all your songs into lamentation. You know, pretty much though. America's lost. It's not a sovereign state anymore. You can just look at that alone. Like Kim Iverson said. I will bring up sackcloth upon all loins and baldness upon every head and make it as the mourning of an only son. Yeah, your sovereignty and everything that you thought you were going to get here is a bitter end. And by the way, America in definition means bitter. So it's a bitter place. This has become that bitter place. And the end thereof as a bitter day. So pretty much you're in a bitter, devastated state. You have no hope anymore. Unless you have hope in Yahweh Shai, but you have to be part of the elect. Not just an Israelite, but you have to be an elect Israelite, because not all Israelites are going to make it on this side. Too many are married unto Esau Edom. They don't want to give up this place. They'd rather stay married to Esau. They don't trust in Yahweh Shai, just like they did it when Moses had come, which by the way was Yahweh Shai in a previous life. When he had come to deliver them, no, many of them still wanted to stay in Egypt, the same as now. Behold, the days come, saith the Lord Yahweh, that I will send a famine in the land. Not a famine of bread, nor a thirst for water, but hear the words of Yahweh Shai. Well, it's going to be even worse than that, because you already hear what these data centers are doing, but we're not going to be on the streets teaching. Why? Because all these other legislatures that are there, the Israelis, you know, Amalek is very nervous. And it's kind of funny that Amalek puts the name Amalek on Palestinians, you know, that happen to be over there. You know, so it's no wonder why people like Richie from Boston thinks that the Palestinians over there are the actual Israelites. You know, just creating more confusion, because this is the place of confusion. But nonetheless, though, you see, the king of Babylon, you know, has officially become the spokesman for Israeli state, which we already knew he was. You see, great Satan and little Satan are the same now. And King Bibi said that years ago to Obama, that you are the great, we are the little Satan, you are the great Satan. Meaning that there would be one day when they would merge. Well, here it is. And they shall wander from sea to sea, and from the north even to the east. They shall run to and fro to seek the word of Yahweh, Hashem Yahushai, and shall not find it, because we won't be out there teaching anymore. And in that day, the fair virgins and young men shall faint for thirst, because we ain't going to be on the internet anymore, because the internet's going to be taken down under these data centers, because it's going to record every keystroke, as if it's not now, but it's going to also regulate. You're going to have permission. Ultimately, at the end of the day, they're going to have facial recognition. This is already being rolled out in many countries, but it's going to make its place here, especially with this merger. Boom. Yeah, don't be surprised if we're not even teaching on the streets somewhere 2027. I hate to say it, but yeah, I think that there will be a 2027. But I also think that that's going to be the final year, you know, with the way everything's going. It may be our final year here in Babylon before it gets destroyed. Trump threatens to carry out biggest attack yet on Iran. Oh yeah, by the likes of which nobody has seen before. President Trump is on Thursday threatened to carry out his biggest attack yet on Iran amid growing signs that the U.S. is preparing to escalate the war. After 12 consecutive nights of airstrikes, which have just been weak. Yeah, you've hit those places, but yet at the same time, Iran has hit back. I'm considering a massive attack, Trump told Axios. Bigger than ever before, I am close to making a decision. We're all set for it. The president didn't elaborate on what he is planning, but he has previously threatened to launch massive strikes targeting civilian infrastructure, which includes bridges, power plants, and water desalination plants. Good luck, because Iran will do the same thing. Yeah, what he doesn't tell you is how devastating those retaliatory strikes are. Iran unleashes wave of attacks against U.S. bases. Sirens blared in Bahrain as Iranian drones reportedly struck the headquarters of the U.S. Fifth Fleet. Sirens sounded twice in Bahrain on Friday morning as two waves of attacks targeted Shaki Isa Air Base and naval support activity Bahrain, the fifth headquarters of the U.S. Navy's Fifth Fleet. I thought that Iran was defeated, right? Which is what the rhetoric of Fox News is they're baffled by the idea that Iran could hit back. This morning, the fuel tanks, large equipment warehouse, and silos in the barracks of the U.S. terrorist army group at the Isa Air Base in Bahrain were targeted by Irish kamikaze drones. The Iranian army said in a statement broadcast on Iranian state media in a separate statement, Iran's Revolutionary Guard Corps said that it had damaged an observation tower and naval support activity in Bahrain. So, like everything else, though, they're just wiping everything out. So we can look at this. It's on fire. Burning inside. Burning inside. Yep. Now Trump can say it's on fire. Betting on Taco, because that's another nickname, right? Taco Trump. You know, meaning that he's so full of shit that he reneges on everything he says. Oil slides despite unraveling diplomacy in Iran. Trump warns China and Russia. Pakistan is reportedly exploring renewed U.S.-Iran talks while Trump is set to meet King Bibi next week amid the escalating conflict. So King Bibi's over here. Well, I think he's really excited about the merger deal since his military and U.S. military are one and the same. War continues for the 13th straight night of bombing. U.S. carried out a 13th straight night of strikes against Iran as Tehran launched fresh attacks against U.S.-linked targets in Bahrain, Jordan, Kuwait, and Iraq. So, like everything else, though, yeah, which nobody has seen before, yet they're hitting back even harder. Hormuz traffic falls as Bab el-Mandeb activity rises. Oh, there's more fronts. Yeah, they forgot about Yemen, or did they? Yeah, well, now you got two straits shut down. Maritime activity showed an uneven pattern across key choke points as ship crossings dropped in the strait, while the Bab el-Mandeb Strait experiences increased vessel movements as International Maritime Tracker reported on Friday. 5 of the 6 vessels followed by the Iranian unilateral scheme, and this heightened the continued concentration of traffic along the specific route. Meanwhile, the Bab el-Mandeb Strait recorded 49 confirmed crossings, and this total included 5 sanctioned vessels, 11 Shadow Fleet vessels, and 4 dark transit vessels. Several ships that previously reversed their course in the Gulf of Aden and the Red Sea later completed their passages, while others remain on hold. So, like everything else, though. Strait of Hormuz, and now eventually this is going to pick up too. Kuwait and Bahrain officially launched airstrikes against Iran. Gulf states recently pummeled by Iran have used fighter jets to bomb military assets with the support of the United Arab Emirates, which you know that Iran's going to hit them back hard. Now that they've officially declared war, what's to stop them from taking over those countries? Which Colonel I think Colonel Douglas McGregor gets into that a little bit. Bahrain and Kuwait sent war plans to attack Iran in retaliation for strikes on their countries. Also, Iran has already stated to everyone that most of the attacks are coming from Bahrain and Kuwait, and they know about it. Both the United Arab Emirates and Saudi Arabia conducted strikes on Iran in the early days of the war. Abu Dhabi took a more muscular stance, launching dozens of attacks on the Islamic Republic as it came under intense missile and drone strikes. Bahrain and Kuwait's entry into the war would mark a broadening of the conflict. The two Gulf states have come under the most intense Iranian attacks in recent weeks as fighting again escalates in the region. So we've got more videos on this. So, yeah. Got Colonel Douglas McGregor, and of course got, well, just what's going on with the Jimmy Dore show, when they're, when Fox News is baffled about how Iran can still be fighting if they destroyed everything. Look at this dumb cunt right here. She's so fucking stupid that she believes everything that comes out of Trump's mouth. Well, ass falls out of the mouth. I mean, she really has got her nose brown for being so far up Trump's ass, which is basically Fox News. And then you got the Fox News parrots. Everybody who believes everything that's on Fox News. So, even more retarded than Fox News itself, how retarded people are for listening to Fox News, right? But nonetheless, though, it's like, how can they do that if, Trump blew up all this stuff, right? Because they believe everything that comes out. Because, like I said, nose so up the ass of Donald Trump that everybody believes the shit that's cropping out of his mouth.
How do you know that the U.S. has obliterated Iran's military? Well, here's a counter-argument. You just admitted that they have the capabilities to kick our butts. There's a contradiction here that Maria seems to be struggling with.
Yeah.
Noah Nixon here, back, and I am sitting in for Jimmy Dore today. Maria Bartiromo. I don't understand how Iran has the capabilities to fight this way, because the U.S. has obliterated Iran's military, and the president continues to reiterate that. And I believe we got a video.
Trump says that there will be outsized action in retaliation, but I don't understand how it's possible that Iran has the capabilities to fight this way and continue to try to lash out at Gulf countries and U.S. military bases, because the U.S. has obliterated Iran's military, and the president continues to reiterate that.
Yes, and if you look at the numbers of missiles that they've been able to fire off from the beginning of this war, late February, early March, and what they're able to do now, it is very seriously degraded. They've gone from over 100.
Well. They don't understand. There's an old thing amongst attorneys, an old joke amongst attorneys that says something's been proven in fact but not in theory. And that's exactly, this is the epitome of something being proven in fact but not in theory. I don't understand why this is happening. Reality, this is reality. Something is happening in reality. And Maria Bartiromo says, I don't understand why this is happening. Let me give you an example. You walk outside and it's raining. I mean, it's coming down and you're like, man, I'm getting soaked here. I don't understand. I checked the weather and they said it wasn't going to rain. This doesn't make sense. Why are the elements not cooperating with the weather? I turn it on and there's the sky and he's standing there and he's saying, bright and sunny today, good day for fishing, boating, golf, whatever you want to do outside. And I walk outside and it's raining. I don't understand, right? And that makes sense to me. Think about this. I don't understand. Okay, we got that. How they have the capabilities to fight this way. Now think about this. What she's saying is, A, I recognize they have the capabilities. Well, that's a good start. That's because it's like walking outside and saying, well, I will acknowledge that it's raining. Okay, well, you got rain pouring down on your pumpkin head. It makes sense. I don't understand why it's raining. Now you go to the part that says you're a lunatic. I don't understand why this is actually happening. They do have the capability to do it, clearly. And I don't understand it. Why? Because the U.S. has obliterated Iran's military. Well, Dr. Jim Kavanaugh, who you may know, a good friend of mine, brilliant guy, always says this. America suffers from the crisis of epistemology. Epistemology being philosophy. How do we know what we know? If someone says to you, Garland is a werewolf, how do you know Garland is a werewolf? I didn't think werewolves actually existed. How do you know that Garland is a werewolf? Epistemologically speaking, I know he's a werewolf because the moon came up and he grew for air and he went and mangled people. Well, you know what? He's a werewolf. How do you know what you know? So she says, I don't understand this because the U.S. has obliterated Iran's military. Well, here's an obvious question. How do you know that the U.S. has obliterated Iran's military? I can tell you how you know they didn't, because they still have the capabilities to fight this way. Read your own words. How do you know that the U.S. has obliterated Iran's military? Well, here's a counter argument. You just admitted that they have the capabilities to kick our butts. there's a contradiction here that Maria seems to be struggling with. And the president continues to reiterate that. I think we found the problem. I think we've run into the problem. The president continues to reiterate it. So what you're saying is, I will believe what the president says, even though it doesn't square with reality. Hey, I destroyed everything. They have nothing to shoot at me with. I don't understand. They're still shooting. They told me that. And have you ever lied to me? You're actually saying, I believe Donald Trump over my lying ears and eyes. And you know, that explains a lot, Maria. That speaks a lot for you. On to the next slide. Matt Van Swole. That's cool. Oh, cool. Matt Van Swole. I like that. That may be his real name, right? On the street, you know the idea when somebody say that dude is swole, you know what that means? In slang, street slang.
City of confusion is broken down.
Swole, man, that means he's big and muscular and powerful, right? It's a compliment for a big muscular guy on the street. I'm confused, says Matt Van Swole. The U.S. has the most powerful military on earth. We bombed the hell out of Iran for 4 months. Trump said their Air Force, Navy, and nearly all of their missile capabilities are destroyed. So how is Iran still capable of hitting U.S. bases right now? Yeah, that's great. I'm confused. There's a contradiction here, and it makes sense. If you think of what's going on, the stories that they tell us, you know, from an administration that kidnapped the president of Venezuela, who is, by international law, the leader of their armed forces, and charged him with possession of a machine gun in his own country. A country which, constitutionally, he is the leader of their armed forces, and he possessed a machine gun. Now, that may be illegal if he was in the United States, but apparently they think he was in the United States. That's called extraterritorial and judicial authority. So for a country that says, hey, we rule the world, and people like Maria Bartolo say, yeah, that's right, we can do whatever we want. We can charge you. We might as well go to the Autobahns. And when people in Porsches come roaring by at 120 kilometers an hour, say, I'm sorry, you're only allowed to shoot 55 miles an hour in Montana.
Yep, and like everything else, though, that's coming too, because you already know about the fuel shortages. But I got one more here. I'm going to have to split this in two because just got too much going on right now.
This is the craziest sort of bizarre war I've ever seen. You know, I lived through the Vietnam War. I watched all those nightly newscasts and so forth. And then,
Iran can take Kuwait.
I paid a great deal of attention during the time I was on active duty. I've never seen this kind of public rhetoric from a president, anyone in power in Washington, that we've seen from Trump. And I think it's counterproductive. I think a number of things are happening.
It's also called Trump shit.
From the battle space
it trumps everything you've
oil
been
has now
taught.
reached $90 a barrel and continues to rise. And I predict it will hit $150 a barrel within the next 30 to 60 days and then rise further. Also, the bond yield on the 10-year bond is up to 4.7%. The reason that's important is all the people that work in the bond markets, Jeffrey Goodlock, I'm trying to think, Luke Groman, there are several out there will tell you that once we hit 5%, we can no longer service our debt. And we have to understand that interest rate is not set by the Fed necessarily. The market sets it. What the market is saying is foreigners are not going to invest in us. The people that normally would buy our debt won't buy it. The reason I'm bringing all of this up is that we may reach a point where Mr. Bessent, who is as important in all of this as, let us say, the chairman of the Joint Chiefs right now, Kane and Hegseth, will walk in and say, look, boss, we can't print any more money. That won't extricate us from this emergency. In other words, they will have moved in this shell game the problem too many different places, too many times, they can't go on anymore. So the first thing to understand is that this is a race between, on the one side, our rapid financial crisis spinning out of control and our economy plummeting, and this so-called war with Iran of air and missile power. And the question is, which one gives way first? And I think the air and missile power war could conceivably outlast the financial crisis, but the point is, once you hit the financial crisis, everything stops. So what we're seeing right now from Iran is a very methodical approach to targeting. And they're targeting the things they said they would. And they're going after the stateless. Your great thing. And note that Kuwait in particular has been a very, very popular target for Iran. And I predict when this war ends, whenever it does, that Kuwait will cease to exist. It will simply become part of Iraq, which is kind of interesting given that we fought a war to prevent that, did we not?
I was thinking that very thing, actually, yes.
And then you see the same thing. They're going after those things, but we also have the shaping operation, which is to prepare Israel for attack. Their assumption is that they'll have to go back and attack Israel because Israel's not going to sit there quietly. At some point, there will be another resumption of operations there. And I think it's very clear the Iranians want to systematically remove all the radars and all the anti-missile missile batteries and so forth. And the same thing is true up and down the coast, from across from Kharg Island all the way down to Chabahar. So the opportunity, unfortunately, for some kind of land operation seems very real.
Well, as a matter of fact, I mean, that is starting to become more and more spoken. We had Professor Morandi on yesterday, who did not hesitate to say he thought that maybe not Iran per se, but the resistance fighters in Iraq could move on Kuwait. He said that openly. The Houthis in Saudi Arabia, in the southwestern corner of Saudi Arabia, could move in. And then here, this just in the last, I guess this was just last night, the resistance affairs experts, the rulers of Arab countries should know that Iran has no fear of conducting ground operations against them. I was looking this morning at some of the targets that have been hit overnight, and I've noticed a lot more are being hit on border control points in Kuwait, which makes it look more and more like something's coming. The fact that they're talking about this openly on Iranian television, that seems to imply that there is serious possibility to that. Now, that would seem just out of the ordinary. Iran is just trying to hunker down and survive, but now there's actually talk that they may go on a ground offensive. Do they have that capability?
Yes, they have the capability to overwhelm not just Kuwait, but they could go after the other Emirates. Remember, the only thing that really stood between the various statelets in the Gulf and Iran for years was American military power. We essentially picked up the British mission. The British mission, after they created these little statelets, was to ensure that the oil states would be protected so that the oil would flow freely down to the Persian Gulf, up through the Suez, and then off to Europe and Great Britain. So that makes perfect sense. And the Arabs have demonstrated pretty conclusively, I'm talking about the people in the Arabian Peninsula and certainly in the Gulf, that they're not really capable of protecting themselves, or they're not willing to. And now we have this public discussion of a potential arrangement with Saudi Arabia to provide nuclear materials. I mean, this is just astonishing. It's almost as though we're not satisfied to come to some sort of arrangement with Iran. We want to blow the entire region up. And obviously we turn to the Kurds in hopes of mobilizing them. And I think the Iranians have skillfully eliminated any platforms or bases in Iraq or Syria from which the Kurds could launch against Iran. And I know that the Turks have been helpful to the Iranians in that regard. They've helped them target the Kurds. Both the Turks and the Iranians share the same interest, suppressing the Kurds, preventing them from helping to tear the region apart.
So I'm going to end it there. There's more to this interview, but I'll get that on part 2 because just so much going on. So just want to get some scriptures here before I end this out. So, we're seeing this play out in our real time today. And when it goes nuclear, you can see that Damascus is mentioned in verse 23, as to which one blows it up. But either way, though, we know that the Third World War is coming quickly. With the merger of the U.S. and the Israeli state, great Satan and little Satan being the same, just brings to revelation Jeremiah chapter 49, verses 20, which we read a lot, playing out. Therefore hear the counsel of the Most High that he has taken against Edom. What's the high place of Esau, Edom? Babylon. And its purpose is that he has purposed against the inhabitants of Teman. Surely the least of the flock shall draw them out. Surely he shall make their habitations desolate with them. Meaning that they're going to pretty much be destroyed. Right there. The earth is moved at the noise of their fall. At the cry, the noise thereof was heard in the Red Sea. That's that whole area there, which on the flip side of it, you're talking about around Yemen, which is also known as Sheba in the scriptures. And, of course, you have that desolate wilderness, better known as Saudi Arabia. All this place is going to be lit up. Behold, it shall come up and fly as the eagle and spread his wings over Basra. And at that day shall the heart of the mighty men of Edom be as the heart of a woman in her pangs. Ultimately, when Babylon the Great, America is destroyed, as well as Syria, Damascus. Concerning Damascus, Hamath is confounded and Arpad, for they have heard evil tidings. They are faint-hearted. There is sorrow in the sea which cannot be quiet. So obviously Syria is going to be in the mix of this. See, Syria is another hot topic as well, because it gets caught in the crossfire as well. So we're going to see a lot of movement before this day comes. Damascus has waxed feeble and turned herself to flee, and fear is seized on her as anguish and sorrows that take her as a woman in travail. How is the city of praise not left, the city of my joy? So ultimately, they're going to be cut off in this Third World War. Therefore, young men shall fall in the streets, and all the men of war shall be cut off in that day, saith the Lord of hosts, which is ultimately the weapons of his indignation being fired across the four quarters of the earth. But, seems to start right here in Damascus, making its way to Babylon. And I will kindle a fire in the wall of Damascus, and it shall consume the palaces of Ben-Hadad. So, yeah, we're going to hear more about Syria and all that, because, see, like everything else, though, it's looking like Kuwait is the next to fall. And wasn't that what Desert Storm was about, that Kuwait could not fall? Because Saddam invaded Kuwait? How interesting that how weak Kuwait still is. That even with the U.S. military there, they ain't really protecting Kuwait. Anybody can grab it. So it's up for grabs. Then I would say, Bracha the Yahweh, Bracha the Yahweh Shai, Hashem Rakal Kadosh, Wa Abba Babal. Brakatam, Yehovah elect, get ready for part 2. I'll have that in the next 24 hours. Shalom.